We shouldn't have any laws covering guns. Is that you have a right to protect yourself.
Republican State Representative Dana Criswell believes connecting homicides to state gun laws is off base.
Their issue is they say if you have more gun laws, then you're safer. And I can't find that evidence, and certainly the evidence they use is not true. If you look at places like Chicago, Chicago has the strictest gun laws there is, and they have one of the highest murder rates around.
We need to send a message in this community that we sick and tired of gun violence.
In Jackson, City Councilman Kenneth Stokes has organized protests over gun shows held at the state fairgrounds. Critics of gun shows believe they're a quick way for bad guys to get their hands on weapons.
There's a loophole. If I buy it at the gun show, they'll do a quick background check and I can leave that gun show with that weapon right there.
It's all the laws you want, but a criminal is going to get a gun. And they're a criminal, they're not going to follow the law.
In Jackson,
law enforcement officers in the IE made 27 felony arrests and seized 20 firearms during a sweeping bust targeting violent crime and street gangs. Operation Consequences is a joint effort of multiple agencies, including the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, the CHP, and the Department of Homeland Security. Officers also seized over 20 pounds of illegal narcotics, including fentanyl, cocaine, and heroin. Crackdown will continue over the next several months.
Clearly stated to the American people. First of all, we are the consumers and we are the suppliers of money. We all take a certain amount of blame for the fact that our money ultimately leads to these cartels' operations in other countries. Additionally, we're going to hear today about guns going south while drugs go north. I have no doubt that drugs do go south. One of the questions is it through the tunnels that I have seen personally that move the drugs, or is it somehow through the border? Would we, in fact, do any real good if we set up a exiting American checkpoint at the border, or it would simply be one more burden?
Tonight, a battle to control the state of Sinaloa, Mexico. With burning buses in the streets and travel restrictions in place after the son of El Chapo, Ovidio Guzman, was arrested by the Mexican military in what they say was a joint operation.
Llevó a cabo la detención de Ovidio N.
Lo que está pasando.
Federal authorities say he was captured outside the state's capital, Culiacan, just after 6 a.m. He was traveling in a vehicle with other gunmen when detained and quickly flown to Mexico City. Cartel gunmen reacting all across the state. This morning, a video circulating on social media showed passengers on a plane at the Culiacan airport ducking for cover. Children scared after the sound of gunshots erupted. Aeromexico confirming one of its planes scheduled to depart this morning was struck by gunfire. The airline now canceling all flights to the three main cities in the region, and the government also confirming a Mexican Air Force plane was shot as well. A failed prison break attempt confirmed by Sinaloa.
Tamaulipas, approximately 80% of the weapons confiscated from criminals come from the United States.
The governor of Tamaulipas said this as 1,600 weapons were destroyed yesterday. The majority from our side of the border. Tonight, what the United States is doing to stop the flow of weapons south. Channel 5's Angelo Vargas learns at least one federal agency has its eyes fixed squarely on South Texas.
Most of these weapons come from the U.S. More than 1,000 automatic weapons destroyed in Mexico yesterday. We learned more about what the weapons and the violence in Mexico means to folks living along the Rio Grande.
In Mexico, at least 10 people are dead and 9 others wounded after gunmen ambushed a group of drivers at a road race event. The bloodshed happening in Baja California.
Mexico is on pace for another year of record violence. In the first 6 months of 2020, there were 17,439 murders, up almost 2% from the same time last year. Helping to fuel that uptick in violence is the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG.
Tú ya sabes con quién traes la bronca. Para que sepas, aquí seguimos buscándote y no quitaremos el dedo del renglón.
The CJNG leader is known as El Mencho. In the past few years, his cartel has grown from this ragtag group of gunmen in pickup trucks into this powerful paramilitary force with high-powered weapons and armored vehicles. In June, gunmen allegedly hired by El Mencho tried to assassinate Mexico City's police chief.
La seguridad del funcionario repelió la agresión resultando 2 escoltas muertos, lográndose neutralizar a uno de los agresores.
And in July, footage would emerge of that CGNG convoy. These gunmen call themselves the Elite Group and pledge allegiance to El Mencho. In both the convoy and the Mexico City attack, the cartel's firepower was on display. They're armed with assault rifles with grenade launchers attached to the barrel, heavy machine guns, and also this gun. This is a .50 caliber sniper rifle. It's a powerful weapon that the CGNG loves to show off. Other cartels use it too. .50 caliber bullets are huge. They can kill from over a mile away, punch through armor, and even take down helicopters. These guns are outlawed in Mexico, but legal in most of the US. And there's evidence that border states with loose gun laws like Texas or Arizona are supplying them to the cartels.
I think a lot of people are surprised when they learn that, when they see that, when they see a weapon that can fire 1.5 miles being sold without any kind of control at a gun show, and that how easy that is to get to organizations that are causing so much havoc in Mexico and in further south as well in Central America.
And there's no way to track the guns after they're purchased. Some of them get smuggled across the border. Over the past few years, at least 70% of all guns seized in Mexico came from the United States. The Mexican Army recovered 554 .50 caliber rifles from 2010 to 2018, and all but one of those were traced back to the United States.
If you or I or any legal buyer wanted to get a .50 caliber rifle, you could purchase one from a gun dealer in 47 states, or if it were on sale at a gun show, you could buy it. It would be totally unregulated. It would not require a background check. It would not require any other kind of review. You could bring it home with you that day. You could then pass it over the border yourself, or you could sell it to someone else at a profit, and that person could bring it over the border. It's very easy to get items like that over the border because most of the enforcement at the border is focused on people and things coming from south to north instead of north to south.
American guns going south isn't a new phenomenon. It's been happening for years, and U.S. law enforcement has sometimes made the situation worse. From 2009 to 2011, the ATF allowed nearly 2,000 firearms worth $1.5 million to be purchased in order to track the buyers and sellers, who they believed were connected to Mexican drug cartels. The ATF lost track of the guns, and hundreds were later recovered at crime scenes in the U.S. and Mexico. 2 of those weapons were found near the scene of a murdered Border Patrol agent in 2010, and in 2016, a .50 caliber rifle from that ATF operation was found in a hideout used by El Chapo. American gun sellers have said for years that the smuggling isn't their fault, but experts say common sense gun laws could help stem the flow of guns from America to cartels in Mexico.
I think the most important measure that the U.S. federal government as well as state governments can take is to ban the civilian possession and sale of assault weapons and .50 caliber rifles. These have no real legitimate use in civil society except the illegitimate use of killing people.
But even with the violence rising south of the border, and with mass shootings still happening regularly in the U.S., it seems unlikely that Congress will take action on sniper rifles or any other type of gun anytime soon.
The Mexican government has sued some of the biggest U.S. gun manufacturers, accusing them of fueling bloodshed through reckless business practices. The lawsuit alleges that the companies knew they were contributing to illegal arms trafficking, which has been linked to many deaths. Officials say Mexico is seeking as much as $10 billion in compensation, though any amount would be decided by the court. The companies have not yet commented. They include Smith & Wesson and Barrett Firearms, among others. The lawsuit was filed on Wednesday in the U.S. state of Massachusetts. It says the Mexican government took action to put an end to the massive damage that the companies caused by actively facilitating the unlawful trafficking of their guns to drug cartels and other criminals in Mexico.
They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Now, you've tried to clarify this statement in recent days, Donald, but I guess...
Number one, are you ready? Are you ready? We will build a great wall along the southern border. And Mexico will pay for the wall. 100%.
Brownsville, Texas. 3:15 p.m. Here in the southernmost city in Texas, stolen cars are often used to smuggle contraband.
Our unit, Special Investigations Unit, consists of primarily auto theft and narcotics. A lot of our stolen vehicles do wind up illegally transporting the narcotics, and vehicles do carry the currency back into Mexico. We need to conduct inspections at car lots, salvage yards, any place where vehicles are being used for export.
Today's mission: investigate reports of vehicles involved in a suspected smuggling racket.
Right now, we are arriving at one of the local businesses. This place is, besides a used car lot, is also a rental space for vehicles that are being exported into Mexico while they clear up their paperwork through immigration and customs.
Torres and his team spot a vehicle with suspicious signs of tampering.
We noticed that the tailgate was welded shut, which is not normal. We also noticed that the bed liner, there was some work that was done to it. The screws themselves were not consistent with the bed liner. It's an older model, but when it comes to smuggling, it doesn't matter if it's a new or older, it's being used. So we're going to see what we can find.
Officers take the truck to a secure Customs and Border Protection lot for inspection.
Depending on which canine responds, some will alert to narcotics, to currency, and also ammunition. At this point, we have no idea what can be hidden in there.
Alert to the vehicle. She gave me an alert to the vehicle. Good girl, that's a good girl. That's a good girl.
With a positive alert from the canine, officers begin to search for the contraband.
Yeah, you might want to make it look like they're a roofer, they're in construction, but something else is going on here. This is one of the things we noticed. The base of the liner is not flat, as well as loose bolts here. They're rather new, and they're not the proper screw for this type of lining.
There you go. There you go. All the way up. Whoa. Whoa.
Nice.
Whoa. These are different rounds of ammunition, different calibers as well as magazines. This is surprising, especially since they're loose. This is going to be a good bust. This is obviously thousands of rounds. We're going to be here a while trying to sort it all out. But just to give you an idea, it's thousands of rounds. I would say at least 3 inches deep. But there's parts of it where it's actually deeper. Some of them, I mean, you do have the 557s. You got a 9mm.
Matt Rivers joins us now with more. Matt, the situation obviously extremely fluid there on the border right now. You've been in Ciudad Juarez for days. What's the sentiment among the migrants you've been speaking to?
You know, I think it's a really mixed emotions. I mean, just put yourself in a migrant's shoes, for example. I mean, it takes them sometimes weeks, sometimes months to get to this point. They finally get here, and it's a mixture of exhaustion, it's a mixture of relief, happiness, sadness, especially when you come all the way here and then you're met with this concertina wire and soldiers carrying long guns and a giant border wall behind me. So I think for most migrants arriving here, it's the end of a very, very long journey. Sometimes they're very emotional, and other times, Lindsay, I think they're almost too tired and too exhausted to be emotional. That the trauma they've gone through to get to this point, it's almost like people can't process that at the moment. It's just they're here, and their momentum of the trip kind of takes them across the river and into crowds like the ones behind me there.
And what have migrants told you about Title 42 and the new policy regarding asylum? Is there confusion, fear?
All of the above, really. I mean, I think some migrants are very aware of the exact policies. I think they would know the difference between Title 42, which was that Trump-era policy, the health policy that allowed the immediate deportation of most migrants, and then Title 8, which was the pre-pandemic immigration laws in the country. They know the consequences of one versus the other. And then other people are simply, just here because they wanted to come here. I don't think that there's a great knowledge of immigration law. It really depends on each immigrant that you're talking to and their knowledge of what's going on. I think the thing that we have to remember is that within the migrant communities, information spreads like rapid fire, mainly through word of mouth and through WhatsApp and Facebook, social media. Sometimes that information is legitimate, and other times it's disinformation. And so some people come here armed with really wrong information. But I do think that for the most part, in the people that we've spoken to, they are aware that this is a monumental week in the world of U.S. immigration, that something is happening here. Some people chose to come in ahead of Title 42 to take advantage of the ability to be deported and then immediately come back. And some people were waiting until Title 42 ends tomorrow, so that way they could take advantage of actually being able to apply for asylum. I think it depends on each migrant. There's a wide variety of knowledge about the immigration laws, but I think generally speaking, people are aware that something important is happening here.
And everybody seems to have a different strategy. Most of these migrants are risking their lives, of course, making this journey. They say they're coming for a better life. What have they told you about the circumstances around their trek up to Mexico so far?
I think we really need to, if you just look at a map sometimes I do this myself, where you hear a story of somebody from Chile or from Colombia, and then you hear, no, we've been walking all the way, and you just, pull up Google Maps and zoom out and look at what that looks like. It is an incredibly difficult journey that people take, and for the most part, people are not taking that journey because they want to. People are taking that journey because they think they have to, and they put themselves in really difficult situations. There's one particular area called the Darien Gap. It's a stretch of jungle, a brutal stretch of jungle that straddles the Colombian-Panamanian border, and migrants coming from South America basically have to pass through that jungle. And that is where one woman that we met here not long ago, just a few days ago, named Mildred Paz, she actually had her baby on the way. Here's a little bit of what she had to say.
Tuve la niña ahí porque en el Dariel porque no, no contaba con los recursos para hacerme una ecografía en Venezuela, ya que vale $40, y me vine así, no me había hecho ecos, no me había hecho exámenes, nada. Pensaba que todavía no la iba a tener. Fuerte porque ya después que la tuve uno tiene que caminar así, que es doloroso, y un poco de miedo que me echen para atrás o no me dejen pasar por todo lo que he pasado por el camino.
And so she had to leave, she told us, because she had no work, she had no electricity, no running water in her home in Venezuela, and so she took the choice to go through the Darien Gap while pregnant. She, of course, didn't think she was going to have the baby, but just the idea that she was willing to go through the jungle while multiple months pregnant gives you an idea of the desperation of her situation. And lots of people, even though most people don't give birth in the Darien on the journey north, other people encounter the dangers of that trip. We spoke to another man named Santiago. He's still actually here behind me at the border wall on the other side of that wire. He told us he was traveling with his mother for basically a year after leaving Venezuela, and when they were coming out of the jungle into the Panamanian side after leaving Colombia, something awful happened. His mother actually died. Listen to him.
Estamos cruzando para poder seguir del otro lado de la selva. Yo la quise ayudar, pero no fue posible. No, ella se me ahogó. El río se la llevó.
Y ella murió. She died.
Sí.
para seguir hasta este punto es como un homenaje a tu mamá.
Es un homenaje a mi mamá y un homenaje a cada uno de los migrantes que se han quedado en la selva del Darién, porque no solo fue mi mamá, fueron más personas.
I think what you hear when you talk to these migrants, and it's a privilege as a reporter, I think, to be able to listen to these stories, what is really interesting for me as a person is to understand that all of these people here have individual stories to tell and trauma that they've gone through to get to this point. So often when in migration, Lindsay, and you know this, when it's discussed in the United States, it becomes a political issue. It becomes, we forget, I think, that these people are all human beings with individual stories and reasons for being here. And I think when you have the opportunity to just look someone in the eye and say, where are you from and why did you do this? Why are you here? It really reminds, at least it reminds me, how much of a human story this really is.
You're right. So often the humanity of it all is lost, and it's so meaningful to hear the dangers and the desperation that they've overcome or in the process of trying to overcome. And so, Matt, we really thank you for bringing that to us tonight.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.